Another day.
All right. I think we have. Yes, time being 8:12 a.m. on August 3rd, 2021. We are calling the Economic Development Committee meeting for the town of Westborough to order. I think first on the agenda, Kristen did send out some minutes last night for our meeting on the 20th, which wasn't on our agenda to vote on today. But if the members have had a chance to review it, I believe we can vote on it if you'd like to. Otherwise, we can just wait until next month and do today's minutes as well as the 20th minutes together. Have people had a chance to review those minutes yet?
We should probably wait.
Wait? All right. Okay. All right. We'll wait till next month then. So with that being said, I don't think there's anything else as far as opening remarks. We can get started on the Community Preservation Act, where we have some guest presenters this morning. Leah Talbott, I believe. And Chris Allen. Welcome.
It says he's on as a participant, but I don't know why his video's on.
Karen, is Sean still on? He is.
Sean, are you still with us?
Yes, I am.
Okay, great. All right. We got a little nervous there. All right.
Okay.
Welcome.
So, just in case my mother calls. My name is Leah Talbott, and I'm the finance director for the town, just in case some people don't know. I'm also a member of the exploratory committee for the CPA, along with Chris Allen. And I'm hoping that my PowerPoint will go up, just because of the fact that I don't know how many people have had a chance to watch one of our outreach meetings. Has everyone had a chance to watch them?
The link that you had sent us on YouTube, I did watch that last night. I don't know if anyone else has had an opportunity.
Okay, so if everyone had an opportunity, then I'm not going to go through the presentation, obviously, if you've already seen it. So just a little background about community preservation. It's been around for about 20 years, and the funds that are collected through a tax surcharge and the trust from the Registry of Deeds revenues can be used for affordable housing, open space and recreation, and historical preservation. 10% of those revenues each year have to be used towards one of those three items. They don't have to actually fund a project, but they have to be set aside. The rest of the 70% can be used in any way for those three items. The Board of Selectmen are the ones that will decide whether or not this goes to town meeting and then to a ballot question later on. And so that's pretty much it. Again, I was hoping that you were all going to watch it, so maybe we can have more of a banter back and forth of questions that you may or may not have. I know that you had a speaker at your last meeting, and so I think that it's important to note that as a committee, we haven't come up with a recommendation on what that surcharge will be, but I can say from my point of view that we are leaning probably towards 0.5% and not 3%. And that would be where we've called kind of the sweet spot of about $50 for average single-family tax bill, and 0.5% with the exemptions would be actually about $40, so $10 a quarter. And I think that the number was bandied around a month ago of 3%, and so I just wanted to say that's not come up as a committee. That's definitely come up in one of our meetings that we had, a community outreach meeting, but that's not where I'm looking anyway as one of 8. That's nowhere near what we're talking about. So, questions?
I also would like to say.
So,
these are for tall people.
yes.
Hi, I'm Chris Allen, and I've been around for about 50 years with Peter Allen in Westborough, and have served on the Housing Partnership quite a few years. Also very involved in the Historical Society and the history of the town. Historical Society is at Parkman Street, 13 Parkman Street, a beautiful old home of a slaymaker from 1864. I also have been involved with open space through the Westborough Community Land Trust since its beginning. So the 3 areas that the Community Land Preservation Act is very involved in are those that I am very interested in and have watched Westborough grow. I have been proud of Westborough and love it very much, but I am not proud that we do not have a Community Preservation Act. Every other town around, Northborough, Southborough, Grafton, Shrewsbury, all our neighbors are taking the benefit of the state funds that the Community Preservation Act gives and are using it for important projects in town that are often overlooked. That's why the Community Preservation Act is so important. For instance, in open and affordable housing, you and I both know that housing prices are out of sight in Westborough. If you are median income, or perhaps not as high as median income, you can't live here. That's not right. We need more affordable housing. Community Preservation Act will help that in perhaps renovating empty buildings, and we have a few in Westborough, to be affordable housing. The next is historical preservation. I was just in Maine, and there was a little tiny historical society that had a full-time staff, paid curator, and beautiful inventory. We don't have that in Westborough. No paid staff. We do it all alone, managing the Sibley House. Little old ladies like me, which is quite interesting to manage the whole house. But what we could do with the Community Preservation Act is have funds for interns. In fact, this historical society had an intern doing a beautiful inventory of artifacts. There are plenty of projects that could be funded by the Community Preservation Act. We don't have the funds to do that. And the last thing is open space. Particularly after COVID or during COVID, Westborough people have hit the woods. Where can you go and feel safe with your family and enjoy life and nature? In our trails. Why do we have trails? Because we purchased open space. We need to purchase more. Franklin last week used CPA funds to buy the biggest property they've ever bought, downtown Franklin, that would have been 58 houses. Instead, they were using the CPA funds to buy this land, about 66 acres, for a great benefit. Why is it a benefit? People want open space. If you are a big company and a corporation, nowadays you want to be able to say, hey, we have trails. We believe that you should have good, healthy recreation for your families. So corporations benefit from this kind of investment in the town to make the town more attractive. So as I said, I love Westborough, I'm proud of Westborough, but I'm not proud that we are about the only ones that do not benefit from the Community Preservation Act. Thanks.
Thank you both very much. Has everybody had a chance to view the video? Does anyone need any more, need an overview on the CPA, or everybody feels pretty comfortable with it?
I know that this was part of your presentation before, but do you want to just speak to the timeline of implementation?
So we would be hopefully looking to come to the Board of Selectmen with a recommendation around November. And then if they chose to put it on, the town meeting would be the March town meeting. And the vote for it would be in the following November, which would be the mid-year.
Thanks.
Sorry if I may.
Yeah.
Leah, do you have any idea, you had said it would be about $40, $50 a year for a household. How about for commercial? Any thoughts on that?
Let me see here. So we have, yes. So we do have a commercial average of $188. Oh, is it possible to get, Aiden, is it possible to get this up? There. Oh, there it is. Okay, great. Thank you, Aiden. So the average commercial was $188, and the average industrial was $245. And that's with the 0.5%.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Todd, I have one question.
Go ahead.
Leah, did they discuss at all, I know part of Chris's point last month at our meeting was the impact on economic development. And this committee, am I breaking up like that? This committee's role being economic development, did they discuss at all any negative impacts on economic development?
Are you asking if the CPA committee looked into the economic impact of this
Correct.
CPA?
If there was any, I mean, that was Chris's point, was adverse impact on economic value or growth.
It's wonderful when there's lots of Chris's, like, who? One of my points was, economic development, of course, is you want to attract businesses. We have lots of empty businesses. And one of the things a CPA does, as I said before, it provides benefits and amenities through open space particularly that people want. It makes Westborough a place where people want to work because it has these benefits from CPA. I don't know financially and all the numbers, but I do know that people feel good about working in Westborough if it has things that other towns have. And why should we be penalized that other towns has the CPA, it's buying open space, and we're not because we don't? We do buy some open space, but we've run out of money for open space. The other point is when I talk to people about the Community Preservation Act, from people who've been here forever to new people, they are afraid of the tax. And they think it might be like $300. I said, no. It's when we're thinking about 0.05, 0.5 is only $50, less than a good lunch at Harry's or downtown someplace. It's not a lot of money. It can be up to 3%, sometimes want 3%. But our committee right now thinks it should be as affordable as it can be and get the benefits of CPA that the other towns enjoy.
And Jonathan, just so you're aware, right now we are leaning towards also having the $100,000 exemption for not only residential but commercial as well.
I think one of the points that Chris Egan raised was maybe not necessarily what our surrounding towns are doing, but the towns that we would view as sort of competitors for business. And so if they're weighing two different options, say Westborough, Marlborough, does Marlborough have that? Is that an added cost that they see in that they might see in Westborough, and does that sway their decision? And I don't expect you to have the answer, but I think that's one of the things that he was raising in the question. I mean,
Correct me if I'm wrong, Jonathan, but Marlborough also has a split tax rate for businesses, which obviously we don't. We have a single tax rate.
Correct.
At this point.
yeah, just an example. But
Yes.
yeah.
No, absolutely, I agree. But I think that the taxes in Marlborough on a commercial property would be higher.
Right.
Jonathan, do you know what the tax rate is in Marlborough for a commercial?
It's in the mid-20s now, 25, 26.
Okay. Substantially higher than Westborough.
Okay, right, great. Any other questions or comments or anything? Sean?
Yeah, quick question. Leah, I think the match has recently been updated. Sorry, I guess you can't hear me.
No, I can hear you. I can hear you, Sean. So the match changes all the time, every year. If you look, for instance, at the, can you see the PowerPoint that I'm showing, Sean?
Yes.
Okay, so you can see that in 18 it was 17%, in 19 it was 19%, and so on. And I believe that it's around 30% for this year. So it has increased, and the registry's fees, I believe, have increased too. But again, that number, that percentage does kind of bounce around, and the towns don't really have authority over that. That's the state that comes up with that percent. The other thing that's important to note, that because we wouldn't be a 3% community, you see how it says first round percent? There's a second round that only communities that have the 3% receive. So just so you understand that, that's just little added information there.
417,000.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So yeah, so with the town's revenue and the state's revenue, we would be receiving about $417,000. But again, you're right, Sean, if that bounced up to say 32%, that 93,000 would go up.
Okay, great, thank you. If there are no other questions, I don't think there's anything we're voting on today, and obviously we would wait until you have your final recommendation before we take a vote, and I personally would prefer more members here for that vote, so. But we appreciate you coming in and educating us further on this. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And so Todd, to clarify, I think the path forward will be to wait and see where, what surcharge is ultimately recommended by the committee, and then try to make a decision on whether or not the EDC would like to endorse it or not at that time.
Correct, yeah.
Sounds good.
Great. So next on the agenda, Zach, I'll hand it over to you for, this is the discussion regarding the EDC membership and size.
Great. So, as some of you may know, we have actually received very significant interest in the vacancy on the Economic Development Committee. There are actually 2 vacancies as well. Sela looked into the history of the town meeting articles that created and then revised the membership of the EDC. So there are 2 vacancies actually that the select board will aim to fill on August 24th. That said, I know that one of our goals this year has been to look at the EDC membership size and mix and assess whether or not we have the right mix of members on the EDC, and if we want to bring in more community representatives or business representatives, or even if maybe we want to earmark, certain seats to people with certain functional expertise or industry sector expertise. I looked into some of the other EDCs around our community, and I can share kind of some of the lessons from that. But I think what a good way to kick off this discussion would be is to kind of hear everyone's perspectives on whether or not the size of the committee is right, and if so, whether or not, or I guess if so or if not, whether the membership mix is correct. I know we are a very town staff heavy committee, and I think this could be an opportunity to reassess whether or not that is right or in the spirit of what the EDC's mission is, and whether or not we would like to change that. Taking a step back, Sean Keogh and I have discussed if there are to be any changes to the EDC's size or membership mix from this discussion, what the timeline and process for that would be. And Sean tells me that tentatively it would look like we would have to bring a warrant article to town meeting to do that. And I think it might be best to aim for October town meeting. to do that, which means that we would have to bring any recommendation to the Board of Selectmen at one of their September meetings. So I would propose that we use today's meeting to have a discussion and decide whether or not this is something the EDC would like to take up in its next month or so. And then our next meeting in September have a actual vote and discussion about what the number of members on the committee should be, and if we are going to reassess certain staff seats on the committee, vote on which ones to keep or remove at that time, and then bring a recommendation to the select board meeting in September. Does that sound right to everyone?
Yep, I think that sounds perfect. Yep.
Great. And would it be helpful for me to kind of share some of the learnings first, or open for? Okay, great. So I looked at a few towns around us, Hudson, Wayland, Framingham, Holliston, Grafton, Shrewsbury, and Upton, all of their kind of economic development committees. And I think the range of members on their committee varies anywhere from 6 to 12. So there is considerable range. There's, I think, a lot more business activity in Westborough than some of the communities that I looked at as a point of reference. So from that perspective, I think it would make sense for the EDC to be on the upper end of that bar in terms of membership. What I did notice is that it is very rare on these committees for there to be staff representatives. In most, if not all, of the committees that I looked at, the representatives are all community-based or business owners. Additionally, there are some communities that earmark certain positions to certain functional groups or industries. So, for example, in Holliston, 2 members must have commercial or industrial real estate experience, and then 2 members must have experience with finance and development, and then 1 with a planning or economic development background. A few other communities have like industry-based seats where 1 person has to be from an industrial type company, another person might be from a hospitality-based company, and then another person might be from like a office, corporate-based company. And so those are considerations as well, I think, potentially to air out in this discussion. There were a few committees where town staff get involved as I guess de facto but not de jure members without voting authority. So for example, I believe it was Sudbury, where for the Sudbury Economic Development Committee, the director of planning is a non-voting member, and so they come to the meetings, can speak, but they're just not involved in votes. So that is a consideration for if we are going to look at some of the staff members on the committee and say, maybe they don't need a vote, but they could still be expected to come to meetings and contribute in that way without sort of taking up a seat from a community member or business owner. Some of the committees also had, it looked like more rigid terms and staggered terms. So they had some folks on, that whose term expired in January of 2022 versus January of 2023 and then 2024. I'm not sure if that makes sense for this committee or if that's something that folks would like to consider. But that was just another learning that I noticed from taking some time to look into these issues. I'll pause for a minute because I know I've been talking a lot and putting a lot of information out there. Does anyone have any questions about what I've just outlined? Or should we open the forum for kind of a more free-form discussion on the matter?
Any questions? Okay.
I know, Sean, that you had some conversations with Bonnie Sullivan, former EDC chair, and I think some other folks as well who were involved with the EDC earlier in its history. And I'm wondering, Sean, if there's anything that you think might be helpful to share from what you've learned of the history of the EDC and its membership composition.
Hi, Zach. Thank you very much. I don't think there was much there. I think they did talk more about sort of the history of the ambassador role and how that has changed. And you know, and hopefully for the candidates, you know, with the number of candidates we've received, that a lot of them will hopefully become ambassadors even if they don't join this committee per se. But I think over time there had not been a lot of change in the makeup or in the purpose of the committee, and so it's always a good opportunity to reevaluate, especially when you get this much interest.
Thanks, Sean. Where do we want to start, I guess?
What do folks feel about the committee size? I think based on what I have seen from peer communities, that the size of the committee is most likely in the right spot. I think if it got any bigger, we would be diluting the voices of the folks on the committee, and we might need to consider longer meetings or more frequent meetings. I think where there is an opportunity to bring in more community voices for the EDC is potentially by reassessing whether or not we have full voting members or non-voting members. Additionally, if we were to have a non-voting member seat, it might be the opportunity to bring in, maybe some other folks who are, very relevant to economic development in Westborough, but might not want to take a seat on the committee away from like a business, voice or something. But so what do folks feel about the committee size overall?
I think the size is, I think we need to be at the larger end, the higher end, and I think that, right now we're 11, I believe, right? It's 6,
11.
5. So I would say I wouldn't want to go I wouldn't want to go any less than that, but I don't know that I would want to go much higher either.
I don't think it would be manageable to go any higher. Very few committees are even as large as 11.
Yeah.
We tend to stick towards 7 or 9 for purposes of getting a quorum and just managing the meeting. So I definitely wouldn't go bigger.
Logistically as well, I'm not sure if there would be a adequate meeting space if the size of the committee increased.
So are we all in agreement on the size? We all think that the size is the right size? Okay.
I think one of the things that informs the size is when you start to look at who you want on the committee.
Right.
So,
And I guess segueing from that comment, do people feel that it would be helpful or something that the town should consider to earmark just a handful of seats? It could be all, or it could be some, to certain industries or folks with certain type of expertise. There are advantages and I think disadvantages to this one.
So my first thought is that it may limit the amount of interest that we get, and it could, right now we're in a fortunate situation where we have, I think, 4 applicants, and from what I understand, maybe a couple more before the end of this week. So I think if we limit it to certain industries, it may reduce the amount of interest we have from people within the community, and I'm not as, initially, at least my initial thought is that I'm not as prone to supporting something like that. Anyone else?
I like the idea of a mix of expertise, whether it's industries or background, but I do think it's nice to have different perspectives, because these things that come up, I think, it just balances out the way that we look at it and how we want to go forward. So whether it's background, that could be another way to look at it. I like the idea of some sort of mix that we would thoughtfully assign. I don't know what that would look like, and I don't know who the applicants are, and I definitely don't want to reduce interest, because I think it's a great opportunity right now to bring in more voices from the community. So that's just my 2 cents. I like the idea of some sort of thoughtful mix.
There's also an opportunity to potentially do that informally, where it's not it would appear that Holliston in their, I guess, bylaw for the EDC, the positions legally have to go to somebody with that type of background or expertise, whereas, and now that we have a lot of interest in these vacancies, it might also be a good time to consider how selection for a member happens, and whether or not it would make sense to not have a legal directive per se, but a guideline for when there is a lot of interest, how you might consider them. That would recommend things like industry diversity, socioeconomic, ethnic diversity, and functional diversity too. Having somebody with, having 4 people with a finance background is relevant, but not, I guess, as inclusive or to community voices that are as diverse as Westborough. So that could be an option as well, is to say, when there's interest, prioritize that. I'm not sure what the process would be to making any, I guess, recommendations to the select board on how they appoint and fill vacancies. Christy, do you know?
Yeah, I mean, you could put it into a warrant article that if that's the way that we decide to change the committee, you could say that, sort of generally that it, whatever it is, 5 business owners with diverse backgrounds or however, you can generally do that. Or you could just recommend to the board that that's the guideline that they follow when they appoint. So I think there's a lot of value in that diversity. So I don't think that you'll get any, sort of concern regardless of the route that we go.
Well, it gives some guidance to our decision-making process other than just who we know. Then we can really look at it and think, all right, how are we going to balance this board and bring in voices that bring different perspectives? Because we all know different people, and so we're inclined to think, oh, this is who I want. But because I know they'd be a great contributor, but a balanced group of great contributors would be ideal, I think.
Right. Yeah, I agree.
I think one of the things, if I may, one of the things the board probably wants to consider is the mix too. I think how, as Zach has pointed out, we're kind of staff heavy right now. I think that's contrary to what this board probably should be looking at. So maybe a discussion specifically on what staff members, they could attend if need be, but not necessarily be voting members. So you open it up more to the business individuals that are actually should be voicing their opinions there.
And then by having more businesses, you have that just more open seats, and so getting more diversity. I think one of the things when we put together boards and committees is we sort of target different representation, and especially with staff, we're going to support the board and boards and committees no matter what, regardless of whether we're a voting member. And sometimes it doesn't make sense for us to be voting members. We're just there to sort of provide whatever information you need, and you have Zach obviously to be that liaison to tell staff when they need to be available or what information this committee needs. So I definitely think that we should look at reducing the amount of staff on the committee.
All right, you want to start with that then? You want to have a discussion on that? Is that something we want to focus on right now? And I think we have
I think we have some
minutes
time
that we can talk about that.
we want to consider which ones, to keep as voting members, and then which ones to, I guess, demote to non-voting members, as needed. They don't need.
Well, I think it'd be an as needed,
members.
right?
Yeah, they would just come and support the committee,
Right.
however needed.
Yeah, I'll throw out the first one if I may. I'd say the DPW individual, whether it be the director, assistant director, whoever, albeit their input is valuable on occasion or specific projects. I don't know if they're necessarily in tune to all the needs of the businesses, so I think that would be one that'd be easily eliminated and turned over to a business representative.
I agree,
However, you guys also have this Wednesday meeting.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have the Wednesday meeting? Oop, you guys can't hear me.
Yeah, Sean. So it's, Business One Stop, as renamed by Zach.
It's like a development assistance meeting. So
Right.
when a business or developer is undertaking a new project in town. Anything from on the scale of what's happening on Otis Street to just someone trying to open up a new small business. We bring them in, and they get to sit down with all or most of the department heads, and kind of hear in one place what each of the asks from each department are going to be from a permitting or process perspective. Sean, are you there?
Yeah, it was more, a lot of individuals are involved in that process, so they're aware of what's going on in town, and so necessarily don't need to come to this overlapping meeting.
Right.
Well, right, I think that when the EDC was originally created, we didn't have that meeting, and so I think that's why you saw a lot of the permitting folks being part of the EDC, and I think because now we've separated that, that's not really the role of this committee anymore.
That's the question I was going to ask is, Zach, for you, what's realistic as far as bandwidth and access to bring the voices and perspectives and questions, because I find the questions that are asked by the town representatives so valuable. What's realistic as far as what you could gather before each meeting so that you could essentially be that liaison and represent the voices of certain committee members? So I really think, your answer to that question can help us decide what the right number and who the town representative should be, because above and beyond what you could do, having them here would be important.
Mm-hmm. So I think since the town has sort of reorganized its structure, and my office sits with building and planning in the Forbes building, the communication pipeline is pretty strong, and so I feel like it would not be significant additional of my capacity to try and liaise with them as needed. I think that would not create a bunch of additional work for me. So I think that's doable. I agree that I think it is very valuable, the perspective that they bring from a permitting and process and I guess administrative standpoint as well. I do not think that would necessarily be lost if they're not voting or members of the committee at all, in the sense that I think I have a pretty good gauge of when something is going to affect one of the departments or when their input would be helpful. And it could be as simple as a week or two before the meeting when we're putting the agenda together, and we're discussing what might go on the agenda. If somebody's like, oh, it might be helpful to hear what I guess Fred or John or Derek thinks about this. It's as easy as sending an email and asking them to come to the meeting for a little bit, and and we would just call them up and ask them any questions that we might have. And so that would be at least how I would envision that happening when we need to bring in the perspective of a municipal staff member.
And certainly, whoever we removed, we could ask initially to attend meetings, just so that we get comfortable with them not sitting on the committee.
Right.
I would also recommend removing the chief assessor. I think that John offers a lot of good information, but being a voting member, I'm not sure that that's necessary. So he and I had the conversation, so you can ask his opinion about that.
What's your opinion, John?
To be very honest, relative to being a voting member, I don't feel strongly personally. I serve in this role at the sort of desire of the town, and I would certainly attend the meetings as regularly as I could, because as everyone knows, I'm full of opinions and questions. And I think my participation, is helpful, but relative to an actual vote, I think I could offer input, and then representatives of the taxpayers could then vote on perhaps what I have to offer.
Okay. Thank you.
So Zach, when you were giving your presentation about what the mix is for other towns, did you say that typically they don't have any town representatives, or that they have few, and if so, then who is usually in that mix?
More often than not, they have no town representatives outside of maybe somebody from their select board or town council. When they do have a town member, either as an official voting member or a non-voting member, it's usually somebody from planning or community development. So I think it would also be a question to whether or not we need representation from both planning and community development on this committee, or if we can pull in one of them as needed. I do think it's helpful, very helpful, to have either, if not both, on the committee, because I think they bring a lot of perspective on things. So, but that is, a question as well. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that, Fred?
Yeah, I guess I'd be indifferent to that. Certainly I'd attend all the meetings, but if you either wanted myself or the town planner not to be voting members, I don't think that we both have to necessarily be voting members, but either one of us could be. And certainly I would expect that both of us would still attend the meetings for input. Oftentimes there's questions that may come up just generally, especially with the development of community development now. I'm finding that I'm getting more oversight of other departments that I wouldn't normally be able to answer questions on. And now I can, so. If the board so chooses, I don't mind not being a voting member, or, as I said, the town planner. I think either one. I think you could certainly have either one of us being voting members, but we don't both have to be.
Right. So right now, if we were to, let's say, remove the DPW and the DPW manager and the chief assessor, we'd be at a 7-4 split? Is that right?
Split.
Yes.
Okay.
No, well, businesses is 3 to 5. We have 3 to 5.
Right, so we'd have, we'd have to change
So-
with the bylaw, we'd have to propose a change to the bylaw.
Well, right now you
We
have
can
3 to 5 businesses, so
Right.
it would be a 5-4 split.
What are the other two positions?
Sorry, so it's 3 to 5 businesses, the town planner, the community development director, town manager, and select board member.
Oh, the
Which is
select board
9.
member, right?
And so if we were to change that, then it would be 5 to 7 businesses, and then the other members you listed, Christie?
You could do that, or you could just, I don't really understand the range, so
Yeah.
just, I guess it would depend on, if you didn't have so much interest generated, I would say, maybe the range is helpful,
Right.
but where you have so many people, you could just say 7 or 5 or, whatever
Yeah.
number.
And so if we were to remove, some of the two staff members that we've discussed, in addition to the 2 vacancies that currently exist, that would create 4 vacancies for
Right.
business representatives, which I think would bring in a lot of new blood and a lot of
Right.
fresh perspective, and kind of diversify the mix of perspectives on the committee. I think that would be a step in the right direction.
Yeah, and maybe that's a good way to start, because historically, I know, 2 years ago when I was an ambassador, they really couldn't find somebody to fill a position on the board, and so I eventually caved and
Here you are.
decided to do it, yeah. So, we don't know if there'll be continued interest after we, obviously we can't fill these 4 positions immediately. We have to go through the protocol of submitting at town meeting and with the Board of Selectmen, but maybe this is a good way to start, our proposal being to remove two of the staff members right now and fill them with a business, and then we can reevaluate in another year.
Okay. So then, potentially as a next step, then.
Do you agree, or how do you feel
How
on
many
that?
applications do we have?
I don't know the number as it stands today. I know that last week there were, I believe, 5, and I think an additional one
That's
came
right.
in on Friday or Thursday. And then I do know there are still a handful of people who are intending to submit
Yeah.
a letter of interest and have not yet already, but are doing so this week. I anticipate that either we have already received or will receive somewhere in the range of 8 to 10.
I'm open to the suggestion that's been proposed. I guess my question is, there have just been so many great initiatives that we're talking about doing, so many things that we want to achieve as a group to support the business community and make some positive change here. And I feel like, I know I've served on a lot of committees, and it's kind of, we're all serving on the committees because there are so few participants to do so. So I like the idea, especially because we have such a supportive, group of town representatives who have spoken up and said they would attend and help anyways, to bring in more hands to do all of the things that we want to do. So I'm just putting it out there to maybe think about a mix of 2 people from the town and maybe 9 community members, business owners. I'm just floating it, but I'm not wed to that at all.
I think maybe because we will be discussing this again in September, and I think we're running a little bit up on time.
Sure.
I would potentially recommend that I can kind of prepare 2 motions for our next meeting. One where we would demote the chief assessor and the DPW representative from the committee.
You wrote.
And fill those vacancies with business representatives. And then one where we would, in addition, demote the town planner or the community development director as well, and replace those seats with business representatives. And so at the next meeting, we can kind of discuss the advantages and disadvantages of both options. One would, the first option would create, I believe, 7 business representatives, and the other would create 8, with 2 staff members and the select board representative being the balance. And I can also kind of, again, maybe codify in a presentation what, the average size and, the average mix and things like that are for some of the committees that I've taken a look into. And so we can use that as a jumping off point for our discussion and then vote on the next step there. Additionally, I would propose that we, and this is something that I can take up as well, is putting together maybe some draft guidelines that we would, recommend the select board use in the event of,
It's a great idea.
a lot of
Yeah.
interest. And then we can
Yeah.
vote on that as well and fold that into the warrant article that we'll recommend to the select board.
Sounds good.
That sounds great. If
Awesome.
you have the time, we appreciate it, yeah. Thank you. All right. So next on the agenda is the EDC grant application for Leduc Art and Antiques.
Mark?
Hi, good morning.
Hi. Comment.
Not sure what, my name is Mark Zeff. I'm here representing Leduc Art and Antiques. My partner and fiance Anna is here as well. We opened on at 5 Milk Street on June 11th after a number of months of planning and trying to find a place to reside here. Both our residents here in Westborough with children attending Gibbons Middle School. So we're excited to be here. I don't know.
So maybe you could just tell us a little bit about, your business, and then it sounds like you've already done your fit up and you're here applying for a grant as it relates to the fit up that you've done.
I guess through the pandemic, Anna and I did different things through our career. Both have had interest in art and antiques for our lives, so we came in to this starting sometime through the middle of the pandemic, decided we wanted to do something here locally in town, work local and be local. So in April, we incorporated as an LLC here in Westborough, rented a space from the Stonegate Group, and shortly after that, and then did some floor remodeling, painting, some signage, as well as some electrical work to the building to get it up to where we were looking to run it at that time. Do you have anything you want to add? Okay. So we came to this committee hoping to, as we want to be residents of Westborough a long time, we have a 3-year lease, hoping eventually to buy something in town if we can to expand our business and stay here and really grow within the town and offer, fresh antiques and ideas and, a bit of culture and new business to the town that is unique.
Great.
So I don't know if there's
Great.
questions or.
Oh, so, looks like did the subcommittee review the grant and?
Yeah, so I would, if I may, I would suggest that they had very specific dollar amounts. One was for the removal and installation of the new floor, and there was a couple other things, but the balance of that was 49 and some change. So to get to the 5,000, if the board so desires, that they did some lighting, which could have taken the balance of the $34.17 or whatever.
Yeah.
We came pretty close.
Yeah, well, it makes it just easier to grant the
Yeah.
but
So
I think
that's-
it's a good utilization of the space. It hopefully will attract people to downtown because it's kind of foot traffic thing, so I think the business would be great. It's new to the town, so it meets the requirements of the grants.
Okay. Any questions from the board? No questions, do I hear a motion?
I make a motion to approve the grant.
And if I can just, just tack on to the motion, we need to be very specific
Right.
about what the motion is. So it would be, and Linda, please correct me if I'm misinterpreting, but a motion to approve grant award for Leduc Art and Antiques for $5,000 to be used for their carpet removal and disposal, laminate flooring install, laminate material, quarter round molding, their window decal sign, and then what remains for lighting install. Is that the correct interpretation?
Yes. What Zach said.
There you go.
It's a beautiful space.
Oh, yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, it's a nice little spot. Lots of traffic, at least that much, we'll say that much. In downtown, hopefully, there's another store opening on Main Street as well, so we're excited.
Okay, is there a second?
Second?
All right, great, so. Was that John or Sean?
Sean did that, I believe.
Okay, great. So I'll do the roll call here. Alexander, yes. Leonardo?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry, Keo.
Keo, yes.
Leonardo?
Yes.
Steinberg?
Yes.
Townsend?
Yes.
And Williams?
Yes.
Okay,
Okay, thank you very much, everyone.
Congratulations.
Appreciate it.
Great, thank you.
Welcome.
Good luck.
all right. Okay, so now we're ahead of schedule here. Are we? Oh, no, we're still 5 minutes behind. All right.
Never had a schedule.
Next on the agenda is the EDC grant application for Monroe Tractor. Is Laura Wilkus here? Hi, welcome.
Good morning, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Thanks for having me. I'm just gonna pass these out, just to give you my contact information, a little bit of history about the company.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
So I'm here as a third-generation family member and marketing director for Monroe Tractor. We are a New York-based company who has been in Massachusetts for the past 4 years. We had purchased Case of New England that was in Shrewsbury originally. Upon that purchase, we had to lease a space in Worcester where we currently are. And this past year, we have purchased the location 97 Turnpike Road, the old FIBA building. We're currently renovating that building. I mean, it's a great space, great visibility. But with the purchase of that building, we had to do some renovations to make it work with the town and regulations there, as well as for our business. So we will be housing equipment, new and used, as well as doing service out of that location, and our retail space will be for parts. The center space will be used for office and administrative. Our sales group will be based out of there, mainly on the road, but we will have service out of the shop, as well as some road guys that will come in and out with their road equipment.
Okay.
We've been in business since, this is our 70th anniversary, as you can see by the brochure. We just put that together. And we've been really excited to be in Massachusetts, and we've had a great experience with Westborough. So appreciate all that you guys have done to make it an easy transition so far.
We'd like to hear that. So is this a relocation from Worcester, or will this be in addition to your Worcester?
No, it'll be a relocation.
We like to hear that. That's great.
Yeah.
Welcome.
It's a much better spot, great visibility. And
Great.
ironically enough, the Case product, which is our main manufacturer, was started, the Goodall family had
Yeah.
a location here, so we're bringing it back to us.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, a
Great.
lot of excited customers about that.
Yeah, excellent. All right.
Laura, are you able to say how many jobs you'll be adding at that location?
So we will be bringing in, I believe we have 20 currently, and we will have a maximum probably of 30. So we'd like to get our service technicians up to 12 out of that shop. That would not be including the road people. We are currently at 8 in shop. And then we will have the addition of 2 additional parts people. And we would like to add 1 more salesperson out of that location.
Great, thank you.
Mhm.
Subcommittee have anything that,
I think John looked at this, right?
Yep.
John, did you have any comments on this?
I don't, I think this is a great use of that facility, it's a really great improvement in addition to the town, and I think, the application meets all the requirements.
how much is the grant application for? I'm missing it, I guess.
For 5,000?
It's for 5? Okay.
I think they spent like $42 bazillion.
Yeah.
on it.
Let's see that.
Yeah,
think they
a lot.
covered the file.
That's just a
So what is
little-
this gonna cover, Zach? Is
Yeah,
this-
what specifically
Yeah.
could we earmark it to?
Laura, do you have any preference for what specifically it gets earmarked to?
Oh, geez. I mean, we could just say alone, the signage outside will be, or, I mean, it's a vast amount that we're,
We could just say site work. I noticed
Site
site
work.
work's a line item
Yeah.
here with a value of
Yeah.
$112,500.
that'll do
So-
it.
I think that would be fine. Does anyone have any other questions?
Okay, do I hear a motion? Want to make another specific motion, like your last one?
I make a motion. I make a motion to approve, to approve Monroe Tractor's application for a $5,000 grant earmarked towards site work at 97 Turnpike Road.
Great. Do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
All right. So let's do the roll call. Alexander, yes. Keo?
Keo, yes.
Leonardo?
Leonardo, yes.
Steinberg?
Steinberg, yes.
Townsend?
Yes.
And Williams?
Yes.
Great. Congratulations.
Thank you
Welcome
very
to
much.
town.
It's welcome.
Congrats.
Okay, next on the agenda is an EDC grant application for Dairy Queen. And there's no representative.
No, David is, I think, on Zoom. Yep, here he is.
Okay, great.
So David, do you want to maybe start by, kind of explaining the context, situation, and what you're asking for?
He's on mute.
You're on mute, David.
Sure. We previously applied for an economic development grant 2 or 3 years ago. We've used a majority of the funds for cash registers and picnic tables. There's been some delay as a result of the pandemic. We utilized the majority of those funds, and we have a remainder of, I believe, around $800 that we were looking to apply to matching benches and benches trash for the match the set of the picnic tables that we've already and placed out front.
And I'll tack on to that a little bit. So, as you guys may know and remember, David and Ice Cream Adventures, doing business as Dairy Queen, we received a $5,000 grant, I believe 2 years ago, that David was saying they spent on a point-of-sale system and some picnic tables There was some leftover money, because I believe as their plans changed through the pandemic, they bought, I think, one fewer picnic table or something. And the previous grant contract was very specific about what the additional money could be used for. And so ultimately, they were unable to use about, I think it was like about $800 or so of their previous grant award before the funds expired on June 30th. And so, David and Dairy Queen are looking to, continue making improvements to their outdoor seating area, and are they're applying for, I think the specific number is $825.78, which does equal the balance of the unused grant funds from their previous award, to go towards the things that David had mentioned, the bench, the trash cans, umbrellas for the tables, and such. And I believe too, David, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, that these were actually part of, I guess, like a package deal, so to speak, with the picnic tables that they previously.
Yeah, it's all in that, yes.
And if the committee wants to see, I guess, pictures of what these look like, they are included in the application packet. So if you go to like page 4 or 5. I think something else that the committee will need to discuss is if you look at like the Excel spreadsheet that I attached as well, the picnic bench, the umbrella materials, and the trash can actually will exceed what they're asking for and what the original approved grant amount was. So when making a motion and when deciding what the committee will actually award for here, if anything, we'll need to be very specific about picnic bench versus the trash can, or the trash cans versus the picnic bench, that kind of thing. John, do you have anything to add from the staff review component? John?
He's giving up on us.
He's on mute, he may be trying to talk.
Was that a question for me?
Sorry, David. No, it's for our chief assessor, John Steiber. Looks like he just came off mute, so.
I was just trying to get to the spreadsheet because I hadn't seen that. So, I think, Zach, maybe you could just convey what our conversation was in terms of the numbers. And what, my question was just with regards to the trash cans versus the other stuff. I thought the other stuff on the list certainly meets what we had previously approved, and the trash cans were just questionable as to how those would fall within the guidelines.
Would the umbrellas and the bench cover the $800 some odd?
Not entirely. They'd be about $128.03 short. And so I guess the two options before the committee are, if they would like to award Dairy Queen the balance of their grant, they could approve a grant for only the picnic bench, the umbrella base, and the umbrella tilt mechanism, or I guess or they could do those three things and $128.03 to be used towards a trash can.
The only other comment I'd have for you, David, I don't know that I was aware of this before you apply for the grant, but from a zoning perspective, you actually have to have the umbrellas approved by the design review board before you can put them out. So you'll have to, sometime after this, if you can get a hold of our office, Kristen Belanger can talk to you a little bit about that, but we'll have to arrange for you to have those approved through the design review first. That's just an aside.
Understood.
Okay, great, thanks.
Sorry, I'm trying to do the math. So if 825.78 is what's remaining, the picnic bench is it that 447.95 number or the 377?
It's the 447. The 377 is what's remaining from the original 5,000 after you've accounted for the picnic bench. So if you see,
I see.
corresponds.
Yeah, if the board recalls, we've kind of gotten different applications on the same thing over the years. I don't know if you've been through all this, Linda, but it started off, they were gonna use it for one particular thing, then it changed to the computer programs and then the tables, and So it's kind of oscillated over the time.
How does the board feel about the, I guess, the additional 12803?
Oh, I think I'm okay with the outdoor trash cans as they sort of also provide an aesthetic.
Okay, so Sean, are you saying that you'd be in support of giving them the money for the picnic bench, the umbrella base, the tilt mechanism, and then $128.03 towards the trash can?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Other people feel the same way? Or any discussion? Anybody feel differently? No?
I would note if the trash cans are specifically for the outside seating, then that would be, you could tie that in, but if it was just a maintenance issue, then it kind of doesn't go with the, if it's needed as part of the maintenance of the operation, that's a little different than if it's required for the seating.
Well, I think they're tying it into the seating, are they not? Like the design of it and everything is, I guess they could stick, right? Is that accurate, David?
And it is in the same vicinity. It nothing to do with our operations and throwing away our product internally. That's all in a.
I didn't hear quite all.
Yeah, it didn't come through there. Do you mind repeating yourself?
Yes, it does tie into this.
Sounds like it does tie in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
That was short answer, yes.
All right.
I think if I could add, Todd, the thing that I would add was in the context of improving and expanding the business, which is where the argument was made for the benches and the picnic tables originally. I guess you could say that lacking the trash cans, it would diminish the added business that the seating would have, because if people didn't have a place to throw the trash, it may become they could throw it on the ground or something, and it wouldn't add to the business. People might not want to sit out there if there's no place to throw away their stuff, maybe.
Yeah. Okay, thank you, John. Sean, you want to make a motion? Or anyone want to make a motion?
And again, a reminder, we're going to have to be very specific about what the motion is for, and it sounds like where the committee is landing is to approve a grant of $825.78 to be used for the umbrella base, umbrella tilt mechanism, picnic bench, and then the balance to be contributed to a trash can.
Right.
So moved.
All right, do I hear a second?
Leonardo will second.
All right. So we'll do a roll call. Alexander, yes. Keough?
Keough, yes.
Leonardo?
Leonardo, yes.
Steinberg?
Steinberg, yes.
Townsend?
Yes.
And Williams?
Yes.
All right. Thank you, David.
Thank you all.
Thanks, David.
Thank you.
And then to all grant attendees, I'll be in touch in the next couple days with you'll have to sign like an official grant contract, and we can discuss next steps at that time. But thank you guys all for coming, and congrats.
Yeah, thank you all for coming in.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
So do we have a planner's report today with Jim not being here? No?
No, not really. But I can, kind of, I think on other business, provide some updates on, a few items. Specifically regarding the Burger King on Turnpike Road, I believe, and Fred, you can correct me if I'm wrong, I think we're still waiting to hear from them on a certificate of occupancy.
Yes,
and I think the same is true for the Convenient MD there.
Yeah, I'm hoping Convenient MD will be close. Burger King, I really don't know the status of them. They've been in limbo for several months. I don't know if it's a staffing issue. From a building standpoint, they were pretty darn close. They only had a few items. The whole complex has actually been taken over by a different ownership group, so the original owner is no longer involved. So there's some pains in the transition there. So hopefully both those establishments will be up and running soon.
Great. Additionally, I don't know if you've seen, but at the RG Shakur building on Turnpike Road, construction has started, or at least I think the demo and roof work for RAKS, R-A-K-K-S Shelving, or Rangine Corporation as they're also known. They will be, I believe they're planning to open at least their manufacturing side of that building sometime in the fall. But construction is underway, and we're excited to see what becomes of that historic building. Additionally, Amazon is going to be seeking a final certificate of occupancy for part of their development on 50 Otis Street sometime in the next couple of weeks. So most likely by our next meeting in September, we'll have more of an update there. Additionally, I wanted to raise the committee, after today's meeting, we will have expended $10,825.78 of the EDC grant program, which means that at our first quarterly meeting of this fiscal year, we're at just over 25% of the total funding for the program has already been allocated. So, I just want the committee to be mindful of that as we kind of continue through this quarterly process of evaluating EDC grant applications. So that, at our next meeting, should we get 10 grant applications or something, to know that we've, already spent, we're already on pace to spend for the whole program. And so we might need to, be mindful of that and become potentially more selective in what types of projects we award grants to. Additionally, I have a few other comments, or I guess questions to raise about the EDC grant program, which is something, I don't know if the committee has considered this yet, but potentially something we consider in future meetings is, if somebody who has, been denied a grant, can they reapply? Or, and additionally, if somebody has received an award already and they want to undertake, maybe a separate or different development project, can they receive a separate award? Some of those technical questions, I'm not sure if we've had situations like that arise, but in light of today, we have actually now awarded 2 grants to 1 recipient, and so I think it's worth the committee putting some thought into it, maybe offline, and then having a discussion at a later date about some of those technicalities, so to speak. And then finally, I wanted to provide some updates on the local rapid recovery planning effort. The Commonwealth of Massachusetts and DHCD have actually extended the deadline for the program into now mid-September. I am still working with our consultants or plan facilitators, as well as now we have enlisted the help of 5 subject matter experts for some of the projects that we are undertaking as part of that effort, who are providing more content or specific expertise in helping us flesh out what those project worksheets and implementation plans will look like for some of those. And so we are having consultations and conversations and sharing documents with those subject matter experts, and are still refining and fine-tuning what the actual project worksheets and implementation details for each will look like. We are hoping to wrap, I guess, the planning and design piece of the LRP and shift fully into implementation in early September.
Great.
And I think that's it from me today. But does anyone have anything else they would like to raise or any questions?
I had a question, and it may not be relevant to this board, I'm not sure, but when we were looking at the, discussing the Community Preservation Act, something that I was thinking about when we think about the impact to businesses and wanting to attract businesses, I think they are, most would like the idea of open space and that kind of thing. One question that I had was, I know right now we have the 40/60 mandate for green space, and I was just wondering if there's any possibility of exploring whatever percent we approve for the Preservation Act could be taken off that split, if that makes sense. I know it's a different issue, but it just seems like maybe it's something to balance it. I have no idea if that's a possibility or even an appropriate question, but I'm just putting it out there.
Do you mean that your assessment for the CPA would be reduced by the amount of open space?
No, the open
Okay.
space would be reduced by the amount of the assessment. So right
Okay.
now, there's a 40, so I have,
Right.
60%
Sure.
of my space has to be not impermeable, right? And so every little bit helps. I know I had mentioned about putting a deck on, and, that's my own issue, but I just think that it could be a way to balance this, to say, okay, we're going to allocate funds that businesses will contribute to for open space, but could we balance it with some sort of very minute, similar percentage adjustment? So I'm just throwing it out there.
Well, Linda, it's hard to equate the two, though, because generally open space and the money would be used for communal open space, so the town would own it.
Yep.
So I'm not sure how we'd equate that to individual businesses.
I think that it may be separate, but just maybe something to consider. If we do this, could we do that? I'm just putting it out there. I don't know if it makes sense, and, I just like to float ideas.
But you're saying that the whole, contributes to the entire town's open space, regardless of whether you're a private business owner or you're purchasing.
Right,
Yeah.
right. But
understand the question.
our mission and focus here is attracting businesses and supporting businesses, so it's just a thought
Yeah.
to say, okay, we've added this, but we've also adjusted that as we're speaking to prospective businesses.
That's interesting.
Just throwing it out there.
That would be a zoning change, right? Right.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, it's big. I know it's big.
No.
Just
Well, no, it's maybe, I was only asking because I was, thinking to myself, it's like, who's the right person to raise that with, if, we do want to, look into it, and so maybe it's something I can run by Jim and say, if there's any appetite or,
Yeah, I mean, it can get complicated, but if you took all the town-owned open space and then allocated it to the businesses on a percentage basis, so every business got 1/10 of 1% or whatever towards their open space requirements, it'd be an interesting concept. To be honest with you, I don't know that any business wouldn't be in favor of that.
Right.
Some businesses, for instance, Amazon, are working actively with the trails and the open space committees to get additional trails and connections. Chris Egan has shown that too, as well, through West Park Drive. So, yeah, I mean, it would take some work. But if the town had a flavor to do that, you'd have to encompass all of open space and just evenly distribute it somehow to every business in town.
Based on a pro rata share.
Yeah, you could do that. If they owned 1% of all the land in town, that they get 1% of the allocation of all the open space towards their open space requirements. It's an interesting thought, Linda, actually. It wouldn't be an easy one to to get to the nuts and bolts, but it could be done. It would have to be done through a warrant article and go through the planning board and all that, but it's not beyond the realm of possibilities, and actually would make it much easier to sell to CPA, especially Chris would be on board. He'd sign up tomorrow, to be honest, if he could allocate open space. He'd be here screaming, hurrah, I don't want to speak for him, but if you could offer that, sure, it'd be a great idea. And to your point, I mean, it might not benefit you greatly. You might be able to add 2 feet to your property, but nonetheless, it's still.
2 feet's 2 feet.
Right. No, it's an interesting thought, actually. It could be done. Again, it'd have to be, the crafting of it would be a little complicated, but it's not. It'd have to encompass the whole thing and just parcel it out that way.
Well, if I can contribute in any way to discussion or exploration, let me know.
Yeah, I think Zach had it, if you can certainly have a follow-up conversation with Jim and maybe have it for discussion in the future.
Yeah.
In either September or October's meeting. It would be ambitious to try to get it in October's warrant, but certainly for March.
Well, since the Preservation Act is gonna be voted on, it sounds like a year from November,
Hmm?
you know, it could be timed with that, perhaps.
It can actually even be conditioned on it.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, you could look at some, I don't wanna put words in, you know, we're just throwing things out there, but it could be partially conditioned on a vote for, if CPA passes, then this would also be blah, blah, blah. It would definitely make businesses more open to the conversation, especially because, as Leah had pointed out, they're paying, I don't wanna say the bulk, but they're paying more. I mean, realistically, they're paying more dollars, and not all of them are gonna get the same benefit. You know, Chris spoke eloquently to why business would be in favor of it, but if you can offer them an incentive like that, they'd be much more in favor of it. Anyway.
So I think, Linda, I'll try and coordinate a follow-up with Jim. You know, you, myself, and Jim can maybe sit down. You know, Fred, if you want to join as well, we can
Sure.
do that when he comes back. I think he's out until August 9th, so maybe next week or the week after, and then we can, you know, touch base at that meeting and, you know, align on what next steps, you know, if any, are required. So.
Great, thank you.
Cool.
Fred, do you have anything?
No,
Zach,
Zach
cover it
kind of
up?
encompasses my report now, so we try to consolidate reports a little bit, to be honest with you.
All right. Any other, anything else anyone wants to bring up or discuss? John, Sean, you guys good?
Yeah, I have nothing, that's great.
All good?
Okay. Then anyone want to make a motion to close the meeting?
I make a motion to close the meeting.
Well, not all second.
All right.
John beat me either one.
We have to vote on that? That's just Alexander, yes. Keo?
Keo, yes.
Leonardo?
Yes.
Steinberg?
Yes.
Townsend?
Yes.
And Williams?
Yes.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.